as a channel that's kind of dedicated to talking about self-care and wanting to help you make sure you prioritize it, like you put it in your plans. I didn't want anybody to think that like I've got this all figured out and like I've got the secret formula and this is what's going to work forever for the rest of my life. Today I thought I would sit down and share a little bit of a self-care update. If you've been following my channel, you know that I talk about planners and self-care, and part of my self-care is planning. And I do share quarterly updates on my planner stack, and I thought, how come I don't share updates on like my self-care? So I thought that now that my kids are out for summer, I would go ahead and give a little bit of an update on what my plans are moving forward and explain a little bit of what I mean by I need to stop. But first, if you're new here, hey, my name is Lauren, and I just explained that usually I talk about planning and I like to share tips about self-care. And this is all because back in 2016, for a little bit of a backstory, because I feel like since this is going to be something I want to do regularly, there needs to be a little bit of like a baseline for you to understand me moving forward. In 2016, I hit what I consider my rock bottom, and I was burnt out, mostly because I had just spent 3 years solo parenting. Solo parenting, in my definition, is to do with my husband working like in a completely different location where he has to live in another location while he's working. And then he will come home just, randomly, every couple weeks. Whenever we are closer in a distance, it'll be maybe every weekend. But for the most part, I'm doing the majority of all the parenting things on my own. I have 4 kids. And at the time, I only had 3, but my youngest was in 2016, she would have just been like 2. So imagine like I had spent 3 years, some of it I was like pregnant. So that was a transition. And it wasn't the first time that he and I had done like a whole solo parenting thing, but that was definitely the longest stretch of time. And as a result, I was starting to feel a ton of symptoms in my body that I was like, what the heck is this? Went to a ton of doctors and nobody could tell me that there was anything inherently wrong. And so I started researching into the connection between stress and our body and learned that what was probably happening to me was all the stress that I was under and lack of like basically taking care of myself to reduce like and release stress. It was just manifesting as pain in my body. And I got into starting to take supplements and try and take better care of myself. Yoga, stretching, exercising, things like that. Fast forward to today, and I have to stop some things. Now, let me back up a little bit because I did reach a point where I was doing really, really well. Like during COVID, my husband was also like away, and he had been away for almost a year when like everything shut down. And I had my 4th, and she was like 1.5 around March 2020. So I had gotten into a really good groove of taking care of myself and like doing yoga every once in a while on top of my vitamins. But shortly after like COVID months, in the very beginning of 2021, I was like, oh, let me try doing a daily yoga practice. I'd been following Yoga with Adrienne for a while, as far as like going to her videos every once in a while to do her practices. And I saw that she was doing a 30-day challenge in January, so I decided to partake. And then when the 30 days was over, I was like, I could keep doing this. I was really proud of myself because I thought up until then that like I physically wasn't able to just do yoga for that long. And I think there was a lot of releasing that happened. I do remember there were some moments where I cried, and rightfully, because we had just come from like many, many months of like stress and anxiety. And I had a friend that had passed away in 2020, not related to COVID. It was a car accident situation, but that by itself shook me in that year. And there was just a lot of things happening. But since starting like a daily yoga practice, I've been really, really good. And then I started adding other little self-care things to kind of help. And that was partly because I learned that I am probably a highly sensitive person. And I learned that during COVID because when everybody was like super stressed out, when I would drive closer and closer to the city, I don't live like in a city, I live like outside, I would like feel stressed out. And it was just like really strange to me. So, I mean, you can believe me or not, but it's almost like I was picking up on like how everybody else was stressed on top of my own. And that made me, kind of look into this and realize that as someone who's highly sensitive, I probably should reduce the amount of stimulation that I intake in a given day. And this is because like I absorb more than like a normal person, for example. So for somebody who's not highly sensitive, you can like scroll on social media, or you can watch, binge watch TV shows or watch a bunch of YouTube videos, and the amount of like input your brain receives is like a fraction of what mine does. And that's just because of my like highly sensitiveness, like picking up on a lot of little details that you probably missed. I'm saying you as if maybe you aren't, but you could be highly sensitive like me. Anyway, I decided to start intentionally protecting my peace by doing things like not getting on my phone 2 hours before bedtime to kind of protect that window of time so that I can decompress. And then I started doing afternoon resets whenever I would pick up my kids in the afternoon, when I'd have to go wait in car line. Sometimes it'd be like 30, 40 minutes, maybe a little longer, me sitting in car line. And I decided I would dedicate that time to, instead of just me being on my phone doing whatever, I would use that time to journal or just sit and do nothing for the most part. A lot of times it was just sitting and doing nothing. Sometimes I took a nap, but it was really nice break in the day to kind of help me kind of decompress and reset in the middle of the day versus relying on all of my resetting and like coming down like towards the end of the day. And for a really long time, I was really good about that. And then that kind of, I think, slowly fell apart. And I think it started around April of 2023. I had to think a minute because of the years, but it's been about a year now. And what happened was my grandmother passed. And shortly after that, my husband also was like laid off. Surprisingly, we weren't like really prepared. Usually we're prepared. He works in an industry where layoffs happen. It's construction, like industrial construction. And we know usually roughly when things are winding down and about how much longer he has. But in that instance, we kind of were like, oh my gosh, okay. And then I don't remember how long he was laid off for, but I remember it being a little bit stressful because we didn't know where he was going to work next. There wasn't like something else lined up, and it took a little longer than it should have to get transferred to the next site. But it meant he was going to go work far away. And I had just finished like dealing with loss with my grandmother passing. And even though she doesn't live nearby me, I would go see her a few times a year, or I'd talk to her on the phone. And so I had to deal with that. And at the same time, I had to like mentally deal with like, oh my gosh, he's leaving. And now I have to like do this whole solo parenting thing again. And I felt like, okay, I've been doing all these things. I'm ready for it. But also, I think everything kind of fell apart because he started working night shift. And then I was kind of trying to process my own grief on both things, like losing her, losing him almost, right? It's like a form of grief, and trying to kind of almost like avoid my emotions. And I knew I was doing it on purpose, and I allowed myself time to do it. But I got into the habit of using like watching YouTube videos and distracting myself to avoid spending too much time alone with my thoughts. Because, okay, I'm home by myself primarily while the kids are at school, and there's no like interaction with other people. So it can almost be like worse to be in that situation that I was in and like be completely alone and like be quiet and have like nothing going on. Thankfully, I had work on this channel that helped me, give me something to focus on a little bit. I didn't dive into the work. I don't feel like I did. I didn't, all of a sudden go gung ho and like bury myself in work like some people tend to do when they have like issues come up, but I did use like watching TV and YouTube videos as like an excuse to like just deal, right? I knew that I was doing it. I just allowed myself to do it. And I was like, this is not going to be forever. This is just like a temporary thing. I'm losing hair. Now that it's been a year and my husband's like also in a situation again where he's winding down and we don't know where the next project is going to be yet, it's likely going to still be away from home. So I'm starting to feel a little bit of the ramifications, I think, of like me almost like letting go of all of my roles. Now, I'm not in a burnout phase. I absolutely know like that that's not where I'm at, but I do know that I could be getting to that point if I don't start making some changes now. And now my plan for the summer is not to just like completely overhaul and do all these things all at the exact same time, but I am going to try and be a little bit more mindful and intentional. And for one, I want to just kind of reduce the amount of consuming that I am doing. Also, just kind of be aware of it. Like whenever I pick up my tablet to watch something, like, okay, instead of just like, what's the word? It's like addictively, impulsively. You know how sometimes when you're trying to get out of a habit of getting on Instagram, for example, and let's say you deleted the app on your phone, you might find yourself like picking up the phone just to check Instagram, and then you remember, oh yeah, I deleted it off of my phone. It's sort of that like that kind of a thing. I want to have like that awareness that this is the thing I am doing. Like I'm picking it up and what was I going to do? And so I don't think I'm going to delete anything, but I will probably put some time limits on there to kind of help remind me, hey, don't go down this rabbit hole of spending like way too long on here. Also, I would like to get better. I would like to get my sleep situation back under control. I think that might be a little bit more of what my issue is more than anything else, because my husband's been working nights. So I have been allowing myself to stay up late and then like wake up later. So my kids basically get up and I get up like temporarily to like help make sure they get on the bus. And then I'm back to sleep for a little longer because I'm getting up so late. But that's like not an okay sleep. Like I technically am in bed for the amount of time that, you know, you're supposed to be to get a good night's sleep, but I'm not actually getting very restful sleep because of that disturbance. And I don't like it. I do not like it at all. I also feel like my whole day's gone and then I have to like pick up the kids quickly. I feel like I haven't had really any good like long periods of time at home before they got home from school. So school's finished. As I'm recording this, they actually only have a couple of days left, but by the time you're watching this, they're already done with school and they won't return again until early August. So I've got June, July to kind of reset myself. I want to start first with the sleep, and the sleep is going to already be better because I won't have that like break. I want to try and like do better about slowly waking up a little bit earlier and earlier and going to bed earlier, a little bit earlier and earlier. Now, the reason why I allowed myself like slack on that is because when my husband did come home, he would come home and sleep until like noon because he just come off like a night shift, drive home, and then he needs to sleep. So he's not waking up till, 1 o'clock, and then he's not tired at 10 o'clock, like my normal bedtime. So I was trying to get closer to his sleep, not like all the way like to the extent that he was, but so that I could actually like be awake with him and not feel exhausted, so that I could feel like I'm spending quality time with him. And that was the point of it. And I knew that like this is only going to be temporary. And I decided at one point to stop fighting it. So I'm not saying like I'm mad at myself for doing it. It's fine. It's just it's served me then, and it's getting to a point where like I need to get things back to normal. Something else that I want to do with like related to my self-care is do better about dealing with like all the things, the items in my home that I have that I have already decided that I do not want anymore and that I need to get rid of. Now, I did like a purge recently this year, like the spring energy with spring cleaning, like really had me like looking at all my stationery and planning things that I've accumulated in the last 2 years, and really like thinking hard about like, what do I actually need to keep, what do I actually want to keep, what can I let go of. I already have like all that stuff kind of set aside in a box, but I need to get it like posted up on Mercari and sold and out of here, because I don't want them cluttering up my space anymore. Like mentally, it's been kind of driving me nuts, and almost to the point where it's bothering me that I don't want to do other things, because it's like I've got this over here that still is like unfinished and I need to finish taking care of it. But it feels like such a huge task to like actually just like upload all these things. And I don't want to just get rid of it as far as like take it to a local thrift place, because a lot of this stuff, like local people probably not going to know like what this stuff is. So I feel like it would get better use if I put it on Macari. And moving forward, I do not want to continue purchasing anything just for the sake of me reviewing it. I think I kind of knew that at some point was not sustainable, and that I was not going to continue to do that for a long time. And it's only because I have always been the type of person who has practiced minimalism without, like, before minimalism was cool, before it had a word attached to it. I've always been somebody who, when I go shop for things, I only buy like what I need and what I feel like it has a purpose. Like if I'm going to go buy a piece of decoration, it's like, well, where am I going to hang that? Like, oh, that's cute, but where is it going to go? Like, unless I can actually like figure out a purpose for the thing, it ends up not coming into my house. Obviously, a lot of the purchases I made, some of the intent was, oh, it's because I want to like review this, and I actually genuinely think that, you know, some of my viewers would want to see what this is. So that, you know, was a purpose, but now I don't have a need for it, because some of these things, I don't think it's something that I would personally use. Up until finding the planning community, the only like type of journaling I've ever done was just writing my thoughts in a lined notebook and calling it a day. In addition to like that kind of purchasing, I've also increased the number of journals I've filled up, actually. And so I've also accumulated like my journals have just kind of grown as far as like what I've used, which is great that I'm like journaling more. But now I'm kind of like mentally like, how am I going to, what am I keeping? Which to me, I always keep a journal. What am I keeping? And then with planners that I've filled out, I'm holding on to them for a little while and then like set it aside. Let me figure out what I'm going to do with it later. So just like mentally, all this clutter is kind of getting to me. So I really want to get that situation under control. My closet tends to be the dumping ground for all the things, not just like my own things, but all the things that my kids have outgrown and they're not using anymore, or like one child is not fitting into it and I need to hold on to it for the next child, because I have like 3 girls that are all like 4 years apart. So when someone outgrows something, I'll hold on to it. If it's something I really genuinely want to keep, like usually jeans, like jeans are expensive. A lot of times, especially my oldest, she went through a phase where like any pair of jeans we got her, like she did not like it. It like didn't meet her standards. So I have, for some reason, a ridiculously large number of jeans in like one size, in an effort to try and figure out like what she wants. I don't know how that ended up to be. Probably, you know what? It was probably because of COVID years, and there was limited availability of us to actually go into a freaking store and try the things on. So we had to do online shopping, or I might have ordered like secondhand, or maybe not. I don't know. I probably was just online shopping. Anyway, I have to like sort through all that stuff on a regular basis. Like I literally just went through their drawers yesterday, and I am planning on going through like all their toys in their room, paring down even more stuff. Just like I have only so much mental energy to deal with taking care of the items that are in our home. And as the mother, and basically the only person who's here cleaning the things and seeing all the things on a regular basis, I think it's important to make sure that the things that we are keeping are things that we actually want to keep. And I need to be a little bit more careful with what we bring in. Like we've always been really good about not overdoing it with like the kids' things. We typically stick to birthdays and like Christmas time for purchasing things, and even then we don't go crazy and get them too many things. And we're regularly like going through stuff, and kids go through phases where it's like too baby and then we have to pass it along. So it's just never ending with them. My youngest is going to be turning 6 in August, so she's finally gotten to the point, I guess, where we can probably get rid of most of like all the like really really little kid toys. We just need to go through it and like kind of make sure that what we have are things that she's actually going to use and that she's actually going to play with, and it's not just sitting in a toy box taking up space. I'm tired of like the mental energy that is costing me, like to think about the fact that I have to take care of all those things. So that's basically like, I guess my plan really is just to kind of reset and see if I can get this like itch feeling of like needing to purge and get rid of all these things that I do not want anymore out of my house. If I can get that annoying voice to shut up and go away. I've already like donated boxes of stuff recently, but there's still just like, I say so much, but it's not really a lot. If I showed you my closet, you'd be like, Lauren, what are you talking about? Like, you don't have a lot of things. I really don't have a lot of things, but that's because I can only get so much, and then I'm like, this is too much. We need to like scale it back. So anyway, one more thing that I do want to do over the summer is I do want to really focus hard on getting as much of my yoga teacher training done as possible. I signed up for like an online program, so a lot of it is just like videos and reading. My books are right here. I already do yoga daily, and I think that's also kind of maybe mentally weighing on me, knowing that like I've got this thing that I want to do and I want to finish it before the end of the year. But I know that I want to use the summertime as like a way to really get as much of it done as possible. I'm somebody who like once I dive in and focus on something, I really want to like focus on it and get it done. So I really want to do that. And I think in a way it's also going to probably be helpful mentally, or maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. I will do another update. I think I want to continue to do updates like this in addition to like a planner update. Maybe I'll combine the two, maybe I won't, but I do want to do this like seasonally. So for me, like this would be my summer update because summer is basically school break, and I'll probably do an update in August sometime and let you know how the summer went and what I want to do in the fall with my self-care. Hopefully I'll be letting you know that I'm sleeping better and that I'm feeling a little bit less, another hair, less annoyed, and maybe my hair won't be falling out. We'll see. Anyway, I hope that sharing all of that has kind of helped you, because I think that there's this like misconception that once we realize like, hey, we need to take care of ourselves, we need to do better, that it's like a one and done. And it really isn't. Like life ebbs and flows and seasons change and things happen in our lives that are going to like cause us to have to like shift and do things a little bit differently. I knew that whenever this whole thing happened with him going away again, that I might have to like add even more self-care than normal in order to cope. And I knew it was going to be kind of interesting to see how that played out. And now that I've been doing this for like a whole year already and I kind of see where I'm at now, I'm really glad that I don't feel like I'm in a mental headspace where I'm just like completely like I've lost it. I have noticed that I am a little bit more irritated, and I don't know if it has to do with all the things that I mentioned between sleep and consuming more than normal, or if it's just my own pressure to like also like work on my yoga training and decluttering the house. I think those two things are really the things that are weighing on me. It's not so much that I'm doing too much of like bad things, right? Because nothing is necessarily good or bad. It depends on you, right? So permission to understand, what am I trying to say? As a channel that's kind of dedicated to talking about self-care and wanting to help you make sure you prioritize it, like you put it in your plans, I didn't want anybody to think that like I've got this all figured out and like I've got the secret formula and this is what's going to work forever for the rest of my life. Like it's an ever evolving process, and you have permission. Like if the things that you were doing for your self-care suddenly don't work anymore, or you find yourself like slipping away from it because things happen and then you realize, wait a minute, like I used to do these things and then what happened? Now I'm not doing them. Should I go back to doing them? Like that's not a fail. It really isn't. Give yourself grace. Okay. You can always come back to things. Like change is never permanent, I like to say. If you can just understand that your self-care journey is always going to be fluid, that it's never going to be the same, then you're going to do better. Like you're going to do better mentally. You're not going to feel bad about, the changes that do come up. Changes are just changes. All you can do is reflect on how you're feeling and how things are going and do the best that you can to kind of make little pivots. And I say little pivots. I told you earlier that I am not planning on trying to do all these changes at one time. Like pick one thing and move towards that little at a time. Minor adjustments, minor tweaks, and then go from there. So hopefully sharing these updates is going to help you not only see like how I'm doing that, but also encourage you to see somebody else going through it and talking through it. Let me know in the comments if this is helpful and if you want to continue to see updates like this. I really want to make sure that I start doing this because it's very important to me to be transparent in a way that, like I said, I don't want you guys to think that I'm the self-care queen and I know all there is to know and I've got all the answers. And while I do know a lot because of like the experience that I've been through, I don't know for my own situation, I don't know what's going to permanently work. That doesn't exist. I just know what's going to work right now. And hopefully by sharing what I'm doing, it's going to give you ideas for things that you can do. So if you want to leave me some ideas for things that maybe you want to change in the summer, since I just finished spilling my guts and letting you know the things that I want to change, and you feel comfortable doing that in a public manner, go ahead and leave comments. Or if you want to send me a DM, and that'll be private, I won't share that with anybody, I would appreciate it because it'll help me feel like I'm not the only one. If you made it this far, I hope that you consider subscribing if you aren't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.